In this video, we'll be comparing two popular stories that might seem vastly different but share some surprising similarities: Attack on Titan, Lost Girls Goodbye, Walt, Sheena, and Breaking Bad. Both of these shows feature complex characters navigating through moral dilemmas in incredibly cruel worlds. They explore themes of power, corruption, and the human psyche in ways that keep the viewers engaged, questioning the characters' actions and motivations. So in this video, we'll be examining the similarities and differences between these two captivating stories. Both Walter Wright from Breaking Bad and Carly Stratmann from Attack on Titan went to college and earned degrees in chemistry. However, they both ended up becoming drug producers much later in their lives. Despite their different backgrounds, they share a common belief that the drug production they were in was just basic chemistry. Walt's motivation for getting into the drug business was to make money for his family. He was a high school chemistry teacher who was diagnosed with lung cancer, leaving him with a grim prospect of leaving his family with nothing after his death. To secure his family's future, Walt decided to team up with Jesse Pinkman and start producing and selling meth. His actions were initially driven by a desire to provide for his family, but his quest for power and control eventually led him down a darker path. On the other hand, Carly's motivation for producing drugs was to support her father, who was about to lose everything. Her father was a successful businessman who faced financial ruin due to the fall of Mall Maria. The company he was running at the time was known as the Marlene Company, and it focused on buying goods to sell in Walt, Sheena, but also trades with Walt Maria merchants. The Marlene Company lost business partners and shrunk in scale due to the massive damage caused by the Titans and the land they took. Carly believed that if she could make enough money with the drug business, she could prevent her father from becoming destitute. However, like Walt, Carly's actions eventually led to the unintended consequences, but not nearly as bad as Walt. Both characters were driven to desperate measures due to their family issues, leading them to participate in illegal activities. The main difference between these two, though, is that Walt chose his family over everyone else, whereas Carly chose her people over her father. When Elliot G. Stratmann broke their business rule agreement by selling corduroy in Snowheath District instead of just the royal capital, she decided to leave the business behind entirely once her father tried to enforce her to believe that the rule should be broken, and then she left everything up to her father. This would be a cause that could have him lose everything sooner or later because his main asset wasn't there to provide for him. In Lost Girls Goodbye, Walt, Sheena, Wayne Einser, also known as Kemper Bolts in the OVA, is a member of the drug operation that Carly and Elliot became involved in. Despite his involvement in illegal activity, Wayne is implied to have a soft spot for Carly and generally cares for her well-being. When Carly decides to leave the drug business to start a new life, Wayne agrees to go with her, but they need money to do so. Wayne sees an opportunity to get the money they need when Elliot, Carly's father, breaks the rules of Carly's business relationship. Wayne offers to return Carly to her father in exchange for a large sum of money while attempting to make Elliot drunk in order to convince him to do so. But Elliot sees through the deception. Knowing he does not intend to return her back, he refuses to pay, and then he was frustrated, so he would get into a fight with Wayne and kill him in the process. In the show Breaking Bad, Jesse Pinkman is a former student of Walter White who recruits him to help produce and sell methamphetamine. Although Jesse is deeply involved in the drug business, he often struggles with the moral implications of his actions. In one storyline, Jesse becomes romantically involved with a woman named Jane, who is also struggling with a drug addiction. Jane convinced Jesse to demand a larger cut of their profits from Walt, as well as convinced Jesse to leave to go anywhere into a better life. She quite literally threatened to report Walter's activities to the authorities if he did not comply. And while after giving Jesse and Jane the money, Walter breaks into their house and then decides to let Jane die by not intervening when she chokes on her own vomit after using drugs in order to protect their operation. Walter allows her to die by choking on her own vomit in order to protect their business so that he knows the threat is out of the way. Additionally, the consequences of Wayne's actions are ultimately more severe than those of Jesse's. While Jesse was about to break free from the drug trade and start a new life similar to Wayne, Wayne's attempt to extort money from Elliot leads to his death at the hands of Elliot. Walter White's decision to let Jane die is another example of the high stakes and moral complexities that are in Breaking Bad. Jack and Wald. Both were the leaders of a team of criminals, and both were associates of drug lords Walter White and Elliot Stratmann. Walt and Lowe were hired by Elliot Stratmann to find his daughter Carly Stratmann, who has gone missing. During their search, they discover that Carly is involved in the illegal drug trade of corduroy with her lover Wayne Einser. Wayne proposes that they blackmail Elliot in exchange for money, and the duo agrees to help him. They lock Carly up in Wald's office while they set up the handoff date with Elliot. However, the day before the Survey Corps' expedition, Lowe informs Wald that a military police officer was investigating Carly's disappearance at a local bar. Wald goes to Elliot to find out more information, and he learns that the officer was headed to Wayne's apartment. Wald sends Lowe to stake out at Wayne's apartment, where he later discovers Wayne's dead body. They see the officer arrive at the apartment and pay her carriage driver to let them take the carriage and wait inside to ambush the officer. Wald accepted Lowe's offer because he wanted to retire and needed the money that he would get from Elliot to achieve that goal. However, he had to eliminate Annie, the military police officer investigating Carly's disappearance, to make sure that no one stood in their way. Wald needed to fulfill Wayne's plan to blackmail Elliot for the money, but he was not aware of Wayne's intention not to return Carly. Despite being a civilized man, Wald respected Carly's father, and I believe he would want to return Carly to him, but doing so would only push her back into the corduroy business after witnessing her father's terrible state. Lowe eventually shot and betrayed Wald, taking over his position and continuing the blackmail with Elliot by himself. Jack's motive for killing Hank was because he found out that Hank was in the DEA and knew about the drug operation. He had to kill Hank's allies, making it inevitable for his death to happen. Unlike Wald, Jack took over Walt's drug business, using Jesse to produce meth and make money. After the death of his family, Walt came back just to finish just one job, which was to kill Jack and his gang. However, Lowe took over Wald's position in the drug trade because he did not want to be bossed around by Wald anymore, and he wanted to continue the blackmail with Elliot all by himself. Both Wald and Jack were forced to attempt to kill the police who got close to their drug operations, but they were caused by different motives. Wald's goal was to retire with the money he would get from Elliot, while Jack's motive was to continue making money off of the drug trade after taking over Wald's business. Interestingly, both Wald and Jack's deaths were similar. They were injured by their adversaries, and they were seen smoking cigarettes while sitting in the same position before being shot. However, Jack was shot in the head, causing him to die faster, at least. Stratmann and Gus Fring are both drug lords who use their legitimate companies Marlene and Los Pollos Hermanos respectively as a cover for their illegal activities. They both operate their businesses in a similar fashion, using their most valuable assets Walter White and Carly Stratmann to produce the best version of the drug they sell. Gus and Elliot smuggle drugs in different ways, with Gus using his food trucks to smuggle meth across the Mexican-United States border, and Elliot using licensed carriages to smuggle cocaine past the military police Royal Capitol checkpoint without investigation. Both Gus and Elliot are aware of the importance of their valuable assets to their drug empires. For instance, Gus cannot afford to kill Walter as he is afraid his empire will crumble without him. Therefore, he desperately searches for a replacement. Carly, on the other hand, is the only one who knows how to make corduroy, making her similarly valuable to Elliot's empire. Just like Elliot and Gus, Annie and Hank share remotely nothing alike. The only similarity between these two is their situations, just like Jesse and Wayne. Though there are particularly two things I want to mention. The first is how their cases got cracked. Annie elaborates to Stratmann, expressing her disappointment that he did not provide her with the information she needed to solve the case of Wayne's murder. She explains that if he had been more forthcoming with the details about himself from the outset, she would not have suspected him of being the killer. She then outlines the two primary pieces of evidence that led to the case being cracked: Elliot's visit to Wayne's home and the note he left behind for Annie. She further explains that Elliot believed that if she had seen the note earlier, she would have jumped to the conclusion that Lowe and Wald were the culprits as Elliot had intended, so he could frame them. However, in retrospect, Annie realizes that Elliot should have given her more details from the beginning, which would have prevented her from becoming suspicious of him. On the other hand, Hank's discovery of Walter White's identity as Heisenberg was a result of a note he stumbled upon. Upon reading a note addressed to my other favorite WW, Hank flashed back to another note addressed WW my star my perfect silence and realized that he had seen the same initials before. This realization allowed him to crack the case and understand how Walt was truly Heisenberg. Hank also recognized how Walt had gone to great lengths to conceal his true identity, including cause a car accident to prevent Hank from discovering his connection to the laundry. Despite their different goals and motivations, both Annie and Hank found themselves in similar situations. Wald and Lo wanted to kill Annie to prevent her from interfering with their plans, just as Jack Skane wanted to kill Hank to avoid being exposed to the DEA. While Hank ultimately met a tragic end, Annie was able to survive due to her regenerative abilities as a Titan shifter. Although Hank's goal was to capture Heisenberg, Annie was simply trying to return Carly originally and only got swept up in business she never intended to interfere with. However, even after everything that had transpired, Annie chose to let Elliot go and help him eradicate Wayne's body in order to ensure that her cover was not blown in case the MP started to investigate once Elliot gets turned in. In contrast, Hank was unwavering in his pursuit of justice and did what he believed was right, but Annie was only playing soldier in order to make sure Hitch does her absence deed. Annie did take the soldier persona role seriously though. As a conclusion to the video, I'll just be explaining why I think that Lost Girls by Sheena was inspired by Breaking Bad. Of course, I listed the reasons beforehand, but there's also some more things that aren't a part of Lost Girls to mention. Hajime Isayama is a big fan of Breaking Bad and already used it in his main work. Falco Grice was stated to be based off of Jesse Pinkman, and Isayama even said that Breaking Bad is a masterpiece in one of his interviews. So I believe he talked with Hiroshi Seko on what type of plot he wanted for Annie's story. In fact, there's even a Titan shown in Season 4 that looks exactly like Saul Goodman. Now, if there's anything I missed, be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and happy birthday, Annie Leonhart.
アルミ、私があんたのいい人でよかったね。ひとまずあんたは賭けに勝った。でも私が賭けたのはここからだから。